He says that his life was endangered by details revealed on national TV and local radio. The investigation against the French media was launched last week. It's being carried out by the judicial police. In April, another lawsuit was lodged by survivors of a siege at a Jewish supermarket in Paris. That took place 2 days after the Charlie Hebdo attack. Well, let's get some more on this because I'm joined by the broadcaster and media commentator Steve Hewlett. Steve, thanks for joining us. On the face of it, given that there were broadcasters saying there's a guy hiding under the sink, he's got a point.
I hesitate to laugh, but it is almost laughable. I mean, rule number one in these kind of situations for any responsible media organisation is to remember that anything you broadcast, anything you put out on Twitter, online, on air, in any form at all, you have to assume that the kidnappers or the hostage takers or whoever the assailants, either at home or abroad, may have access to it. And if you're telling them things they don't know, for example, that there is somebody they don't know about observing and aware of their actions inside the place that they have captured, then clearly the potential consequences for the poor individual involved are plainly potentially fatal. So it's the height of media irresponsibility. And the BBC's guidelines, for example, and the BBC is not unique in this, all organisations will have similar guidelines. I tell you, the very first line of guidelines for dealing with war, terror and emergencies, hijacking, kidnapping, hostage-taking, sieges and the like is, in cases of hijacking, kidnapping, hostage-taking, sieges, bombings or other similar events, we must be aware that directly or indirectly of what we broadcast may be observable by the perpetrators both in the UK and abroad. So it's rule number one.
Right, and it's broken allegedly quite significantly here. Is this, I mean, simply speaking, is this, do you think, a result of the nature of rolling news? Because I think one of the stations being taken on here is a 24-hour, very successful and quite a dramatic news channel.
It's plain, at some level, it is plainly incompetent. I mean, you know, lots of rolling news organisations cover difficult situations that are unfolding very quickly, but do so in an entirely responsible way. Now, look, I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I can only imagine that in the aftermath of the terrible atrocity at Charlie Hebdo, that there was all sorts of things going on. It was the fog of war, as they say, lots of confusing bits of information here, there, whatever. And clearly this information was broadcast with nobody having thought about the potential consequences. My guess is that the BBC wouldn't do that. I don't think CNN would do that. I say the BBC is not unique in this. Responsible media organisations wouldn't do that. Now, precisely why it happened, I don't know. But I say it is rule number one, and it's so obvious when you think about it that you put it on air. The kidnappers only going to be listening to the radio, watching the TV, or even observing Twitter on their mobile phone, and you've told them something that they don't know, that information they might use, which in this case, could have resulted in a catastrophic outcome.
Can I ask you, I mean, obviously this chap only discovered what had been going on after the event, happy to talk at the time, but is there a case of saying, well, you know, there are so many, I'm not going to go down the line of whether it was irresponsible or not, but there are so many outlets now that liaising with the authorities has become a lot harder. I mean, for the authorities, for the police, for whoever it is at the centre, to get the same message out to everyone is very difficult.
In theory, that's right. But in this case, it would appear that it's the mainstream broadcasters who are being investigated by the prosecutor's office. So it wasn't sort of a channel no one had heard of, or an individual who picked up information and sort of put it out on Twitter. These are big-time responsible broadcasters who appear to have, as it were, put their foot in it. Now, I don't suppose they did it in that sense deliberately. No one would have set out to do any harm, but there's a lack of, one would infer that there is a lack of control, a lack of procedure, and a lack of, professionalism, actually, in terms of the way they've gone about it. It has all the hallmarks of kind of, headless chickens about it. But again, I wasn't there, and I mean, in previous, the BBC's guidelines also, and again, they're not unique in this, I'm sure, say quite explicitly that, you should discuss these things with the security forces, that any reasonable request to exclude information or even include information, provided it's not, it to be true, or you should never knowingly broadcast something that's untrue, you shouldn't get involved in that game, as it were, but that all those requests should be taken seriously. The other point here is the public right to know, which of course sits underneath the media's freedom, it can be exercised at half a step removed once the event is over. There's really no justification for imperiling someone's life in this sort of situation in the cause of the public's right to know. I just don't think it holds, because all that you needed to know for importance sake can be done afterwards.